Hello. Hello. Hi.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon.
Hello. Arno Kumar.
Sir.
Are you able to listen?
Yeah, sir. I am audible and visible also, sir.
Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Is it audible, sir?
But your photo, I think people are. Yeah, now it's okay. Who
Okay,
is on
sir.
the screen now?
My name is Karana Kumar, sir. I am the present working in Kottagudem.
Good. Karna Kumar, you are on the screen. What about the other candidates? I think there are about 5 candidates who have joined so far. Can we wait for some more time?
Yes, sir. So just 1 or 2 minutes we are waiting.
Yeah, thank you very much, Karna Kumar.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Kondalu. Kondalu.
Sir, good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Following?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yes, good. Murthy Garu. Hello, Murthy Garu, please respond. Mr. Murthy. Aswita, Ashok. So please unmute your things. Please unmute.
Yes, sir.
Please. You are not on the screen, Aswita ji.
Actually, my laptop has a camera issue, so I can log in.
I'm sorry, it's not audible clear. It's not clear. Yes. Let us try to understand how many people have on the screen now. Asad Mushir, you are present. Asad Mushir, please unmute. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, hi. Then Aswita's Ashu. Please unmute, please. You're supposed to unmute all the audio.
Yes, sir.
Then Asad Mushir. That's okay. Nagini is Galaxy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm sorry, I'm not able to see you also on the screen. Just only the names that I'm getting, you know. Except a few people, Kondalu is there, Karunakumar is there. Yeah, Murthy Garu is also there on the screen. Murthy ji, please unmute the speaker. Then Vadi Usarani.
Yes, sir.
Unmute, please unmute your speakers. And I request all
Yes,
the members,
sir.
please unmute. Please unmute all your speakers. Okay, friends. This is related to this research methodology, and I am of course Dr. B. Krishnardi, and those people who attended in the last process, they know pretty well about me since I was there with them for the almost in the 4 classes. And in continuation of those 4 classes, now we are going to discuss, which are also discussed earlier. I just for the sake of those people who did not attend in the last classes. Is it audible, madams or friends, sirs?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's audible, sir.
Yes, good. Please
It's audible
respond,
and visible,
please
sir.
respond to me whenever there's a question or anything from my side. Please respond to me. Okay.
Yes, sir. It's audible and visible.
Thank you very much, Karna Kumar. You are on the screen now. Yes. Now the unit number 9. Only we have completed the 8 units, including 9th unit also. But anyway, since we are going to have some kind of lead to the next coming up topics, then I try to talk a few things related to this unit number 9, which was also discussed in the last class. And unit number 9 is related to introduction to research designs. You know, pretty well research design. There is a blueprint. How are you going to take up our research? And that you can also see the other thing related to that. Research designs. Then research design is a kind of blueprint. Then is meant that this will also tell you how best that you are going to.
Sir, my voice is sir.
Am I not audible? Hello? Hello?
Yes, it's clear, sir.
Is it clear? So friends, this is related to unit number 9. Is it clear?
Yeah.
No, sir, sir.
The other people are able to listen to me. Is there any problem from your side, please? So okay, everything is all right, no problem.
Yes, sir, it's clear, sir. Clear. It's visible, audible.
Seema Palan, okay. So who is having some problem there? Hello?
Sir, the problem is not from your side. You are audible, sir. You are clearly audible.
But somebody, of course, saying that they are not able to follow me. So, well, friends, I'm talking about unit number 9, which talks about the research designs. And the research design is a blueprint. How are you going to take up a research program? It's like a blueprint in the sense, you know, Petro, that you can also recollect the B.Ed program where you talked about the blueprint for preparing your test paper for conduct a scholastic achievement test. It's a kind of table where you can also find out the objectives, also the weightages to the different questions, and also other things. Similar is the case here in research process. This blueprint will also tell you, or the research design will also tell you, how are you going to take up research and what are the various elements which are included in the research design. So therefore, research design indicates the kind of research that you are taking up, and it will also tell you different aspects which we discussed in the earlier class also, which talks about the method of research. This will also tell you about the population, also the sampling, also the variables, and also the type of proof that you are going to use it, and how are you going to collect the data, and how are you going to analyze the data. These are the various components which would go into the research design. So these are the various elements which would go into the research design. So and then for that purpose, I think research design, there are different approaches for that purpose. And in brief, I tell you, research design is the detailed plan of procedures for conducting research. It tells how all of the major parts of the research project, the sample, the groups, measures, treatments, the programs, and methods of assignment should be conducted by to try to address the central research questions. So any research design basically serves two major functions. Firstly, it answers the research questions. So research design is meant for answering the research questions which are formulated or prepared by you for your research purpose. The second one is any research design basically serves two purposes. The first is it will answer the research questions as objectively, validly, and economically as possible. A good research design suggests to the researcher how to collect data for testing the hypothesis also. So therefore, it has to answer all the research questions. Then for that purpose, you have to collect the data. Then a good research design suggests the researcher how to collect the data also for testing the hypothesis, how to manipulate the variables, and what statistical methods should be used to analyze the data. These are the various components which are included in the research design. Talking about the research method that you are going to use for your research purpose, the population, the sampling, then also the tools, also the variables, and also the other things related how to analyze the data also, the kind of statistical techniques that you can use for analysis of the data. And all these things will be explained in the research design. So the selection of a research design, among other things, depends on the approach we follow to study a scientific problem. Normal research is a scientific problem because we study the various things systematically with the proof, and these things should be verifiable with logic, with the sequence, and then there should be cause and effect kind of relationship to study or to understand the relationship between the cause and effect. For that purpose, we try to take up the researches. So depends on this research design, depends on the approach we follow to study scientific problem. Basically, there are two scientific approaches to study a problem. Basically, there are two scientific approaches. Could you please tell me what are those approaches? Not two approaches, there are many approaches also, mostly for your purpose. For the students of psychology, your researches are mostly related to experimental researches. That's the reason why they are mentioning there are two scientific approaches to study a problem, experimental approach and ex post facto approach. So scientific research, and the purpose of this is research design is to study the cause and effect relationship between the variables. Mainly there are two approaches. One is experimental approach and the other is ex post facto approach. When researcher says that, what is experimental research? I think you may be knowing pretty well what is the experimental research. An experiment has to be conducted. Am I right or wrong? This can be done in the laboratory. This can also be conducted in the field. The experiments can also be conducted in the laboratory under strict conditions, normally which will be taken up by the physical sciences, natural sciences, and other sciences, because they try to control all the variables. That's the reason why they require laboratory. Similarly is the case with some of the experiments related to the psychology also requires the laboratory methods or laboratory for conducting the experiments to study the different problems of the human beings. When a researcher says that he is following experimental approach, it means that he is interested to see the cause-effect relationship between the variables. So experimental research is meant for understanding the relationship between the cause and effect. Cause and effect. So what is the cause for this and what are the effects of that particular phenomenon? So for that purpose, we try to conduct the experimental researches. And the researchers does so by directly manipulating some variables and controlling other variables. So here the researcher will also manipulate. Manipulate, please don't take in the negative sense. Manipulation means it's a changing the variables. Don't take it in the negative sense. So therefore, the researcher has to manipulate the different variables, how they affect or influence the dependent variable. How the independent variables will influence the dependent variable. For that purpose, here in this particular experimental research, the researchers has to directly manipulating some of the variables to find the effects of those variables on the dependent variable. This approach studies the relation between two or more variables and are highly controlled and purest conditions possible. Yes, experimental research will be conducted under controlled conditions. Everything should be manipulated by the researcher, and he can control the variables also. So therefore, under controlled conditions, you try to see the relationship between the cause and effect. For that purpose, we take up experimental researches. Then, unlike the experimental approach, ex post facto does not require the researcher to manipulate the variables. Ex post facto here does not require any manipulation at all here in this particular approach. In the experimental approach, the experimenter or the researcher can manipulate the variables to see its effect. But whereas in ex post facto researches, he cannot manipulate the variables. This approach is more suitable for social sciences, where most of the variables are not amenable to direct manipulation. So most of the variables are not amenable for direct manipulation. That's the reason why here he cannot change the variables, especially in social sciences. So there is a difference between ex post facto research or approach and the experimental approach. Experimental approach where the researcher has control over the variables, he can also change the variables. But whereas in the ex post facto researches, he cannot control the variables or manipulate the variables. This can happen in most of the social sciences. So most of the studies that we are taking up in social sciences will come under ex post facto researches. If I tell you any program that is already conducted, experiment is conducted, then after conducting the experiment, what would be the effects of that experiment? If you take up research, that we can also call it as ex post facto research. Already the experiment is conducted, then you are studying the effects of that particular experiment. So effects of that particular experiment can be studied by researchers, which we can call it as ex post facto. Post means after. Fact means facts or the results or the effects. So once the experiment is conducted, after conducting the experiment, we try to take up a study to study the effects of that particular experiment, which we can call it as ex post facto research or approach. Am I clear? Am I clear or not? Hello,
Yes,
friends?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You have to respond, madams or sirs. If you don't respond to me, I think something wrong with my teaching also. I have to come to that kind of conclusion that I'm not able to reach you also. Please respond whenever there's a question or communication from my side. Okay, na?
Okay,
Sure,
sir.
sir.
That's nice. That's
Okay,
nice.
sir.
That's nice, friends. And this is the first time that I am on the online for you only. Other, of course, I've done number of times for the other students, but for you, this is the first time on online teaching. So this is the difference between the ex post facto research and the experimental research. And again, if I tell you or simplify the difference between these two researcher approaches is, the first one, experimental research, is where the researchers has control over the variables or he can manipulate the variables, whereas in the ex post facto research of the approach, there the researcher doesn't have any control over the variables. So experimental research and the ex post facto research, this is the major difference between these two approaches. And again, there are three basic types of research design. The earlier that whatever that I discussed, they are the approaches. And now let us try to understand basic research designs. One is experimental research. The second one is quasi-experimental research. And the last one is non-experimental design. These are the three basic types of research design. Experimental research we have seen now. What is experimental research? Where the experiment has to be conducted by the researcher, where the researcher can manipulate or change or otherwise bring any kind of change he requires. What is that he want to learn? You want to see the effect of that particular variable. He can change that one. So that kind of scope is also possible in experimental research. But quasi-experimental research, here this quasi-experimental research may not be that much systematic. Unlike experimental research, there you find some kind of errors, no systematization, and there may be some liberty kind of thing, not properly conducted. There may be some missings. So this is not completely a systematic kind of research. That's the reason why we can call it as quasi, not completely experimental research. But experimental research is completely a controlled kind of activity, whereas quasi-experimental research is, it may not be that much systematic. All the things are not taken proper. It's not a pakka experiment. So most of the researchers that are conducted in social sciences will come under quasi-experimental researchers. It may be in psychology or it may be in education. Whoever they are talking about, the experimental research, they are not pakka experimental researchers, but they are quasi-experimental researchers. Because there may be influence of so many variables which you cannot control at all. Those things are not in your hands. If anything that is controlled, that will come under experimental research. But those things which are not in the hands of the researcher, that research is known as quasi-experimental research. So not systematic, not pakka. Then non-experimental design, which is not experimental design. It may be survey researchers also, they are not experimental designs. Survey research is not experimental, where you are going to collect the data from the people. So non-experimental design, the survey research is one which will come under as an example for non-experimental design. Then there are two most important characteristics of the experimental design that distinguish from other designs. The first one is that direct manipulation of the independent variable in the experimental research. The researchers has total control over the manipulations of the independent variables in experimental research. The second one is randomization. So randomization is also possible. You cannot collect the data from each and every individual because the population is too much, which is out of your control. That's the reason why you have to select or pick up the candidates or the subjects randomly. Randomly, because you cannot study the whole population, about 140 or 150 crores population in India. You cannot collect the data. That's the reason why randomization is also possible here. So the second characteristic that will come under experimental research is randomization is possible here in experimental research. The researcher randomly selects the simple sample from the population and randomly assigns the participants to different experimental groups. So you can select the subjects or the clients or the people or the target or the clients on which you are going to conduct the research. You can select them randomly. You cannot collect all the people data. You cannot collect the data from all the people because the population is too heavy. You cannot control and you don't have money at all. You don't have time at all. And it cannot be humanly not possible also. So therefore, this experimental research contains two characteristics. Number one is control over the independent variables. The second one is randomization. The second category of research design is quasi-experimental design. These are similar to experimental design, but fail to fully meet the requirements of experimental design. Procedure is the same for experimental research and also for quasi-experimental research design, but this is not pakka, not systematic, but fail to meet the requirements of experimental design. అక్కడ ఎంతైతే కంట్రోల్ చేయగలుగుతామో దట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ కంట్రోల్ in quasi experimental designs may not be taken up or may not, they may be missing such kind of pakka kind of research. Some of these things might have missed out in this particular research. That's the reason why we can call it as quasi experimental research design. These are similar to experimental design. The only thing difference between the experimental design and the quasi experimental design is that this is not pakka, not systematic, but the procedure is the same. But here the care is not that much, attention is not that much by the researcher on the experiment here in this quasi experimental research. As a result, he cannot say that the experimental groups are equal before the experiment. Here I think the results may not be pakka also. In quasi-experimental research, the results of that particular quasi-experimental research may not be pakka results or valid results because the care that was supposed to be taken up by the researcher was not taken up, but you get some kind of idea. So here the results are that much, not that much valid in quasi-experimental research, but in experimental research, the results are very, very valid. Then as a result, he cannot say that the experimental groups are equal before the experiment. So the experimental groups may not be equal also before the experiment, before conducting the experiment. He might have not taken that kind of care to pick up right type of candidates or equal kind of groups for his experiment. He might have taken, or he might have taken some kind of liberty, or randomization may not be followed strictly. So such kind of things will also creep into this quasi-experimental research. Less confidence is placed on the results also obtained from such studies. The last category is non-experimental design. These are ex post facto in nature and are basically interested in how the variable are associated in the real world rather than in the controlled laboratory world. My dear friends, this is not a research that will be taken up in the laboratories. This is non-experimental research. So here not the research, but after completion of the experiment, what is happening in the field? If you take up such a study, that study will come under ex post facto in nature and are basically interested in how the variables are associated in the real world rather than in the controlled laboratory world. Here, there is a shift from the laboratory to the field in real world, how the things are happening. For that purpose, we can take up this non-experimental research design. It's not experiment at all to my knowledge. All those survey methods, survey kind of research will come under this particular example. So what is happening in the real world or what is happening in the field, what is happening beyond the laboratory. So we can take up such kind of researches, which we can call them as non-experimental research. These are the major research designs or basically important research designs. Now let us move into unit number 10. There's a few things related to unit number 9 also we have discussed in the last class also. However, for the benefit of some of the candidates who were absent during that time, I just repeated once more. Now let us move into this unit number 10. What is this unit number 10? Hello?
Experimental design.
Part 1.
Let us try to understand very clearly in detailed fashion. We have seen the basic research designs, experimental, then quasi-experimental. The third one is non-experimental research, isn't it? These are the basic research designs. Experimental design, research design. Number 2 is quasi-experimental research design. Number 3 is non-experimental design, which we can also call it as ex post facto research design. Ex post facto research design. Now let us try to understand very clearly about the experimental research designs. So experimental research design will be conducted in the laboratories under strict conditions and controlled conditions where there is manipulation by the investigator or the researcher of the independent variables. Yes, friends. Then research design related to experimental research design. Let us try to understand what this experimental designs 1, unit number 10 related to experimental designs 1. Then experimental designs, as it said that earlier, this design experiment is the blueprint of the procedure that enables the experimenter to test various hypotheses. You know pretty well, every research in your psychology will be having hypothesis or research questions. There may be research questions. If there are no research questions, in that place you find hypothesis. For testing those hypotheses, then we can conduct this experimental design. Carefully, type of design the research will be using for testing the hypothesis. This particular design will be used for testing the hypothesis. There are different experimental designs available for the experimenter. They can broadly be categorized as between group designs and within group designs. So you can categorize the experimental research designs into between group designs and within group designs. Between group designs means between group designs refer to the designs where different groups are employed in different experimental conditions. In different experimental conditions. Between group designs refer to the designs where different groups are employed in different experimental conditions. The researcher can employ those groups which are categorized by him for his research purpose. He can use those groups or employ those groups in different experimental conditions. For example, an experimenter is interested in examining the effect of a particular meditation on migraine headaches. I think already this is already over in the last class also. Let us try to understand still. Example for this between group designs is that an experimenter is interested in examining the effect of a particular meditation on migraine headaches. I think some of you are facing this kind of problem, am I right? You are facing? Oh,
yes,
Murthy garu. Murthy garu, cheppandi.
Sir,
Would you like to throw any light on this?
sir, no, sir. I have not experienced this one.
And those people who are experiencing this kind of migraine headache, I think I did come across so many people who are having this kind of migraine headache. This is also psychological feeling to my knowledge. If you think of a particular that headache, it will appear as if it is a problem for you. And there is no, to my knowledge, there is no medicine at all, physically.
It is a psychological problem, sir.
Yeah, mostly this is a psychological problem to my knowledge because I have seen some of the, including one of my family members. She has come from Italy, almost my daughter. She is facing this kind of problem. And she herself is telling, if I sit like this, or if I sleep like this, or if I do like this, I get this kind of migraine headache. She knows the reasons also for getting that migraine headache also.
Sir, there are environmental factors also, sir, which cause migraine headaches. There are environmental factors also which cause headaches. Apart from psychological thinking, even if sometimes we ignore that what we have done, this may cause a headache.
The doctor was also suggesting, you know pretty well the reasons for your migraine headache. Then why did you come to me? To stop those. Stop. You don't sit like this. You don't sleep like this. You don't do this. she herself is telling all these reasons for getting migraine headache, then you can stop all those things. That was the medicine that was given by the doctor.
Sir, me too. I'm suffering from migraine, sir.
Yeah.
But I cannot avoid smells which come from the if I pass through anyone, if I expose to
Perfume
any
smell also.
perfume smell, or else if I go to
Right, friends, sir.
temple.
These are some of those things. Try to avoid those things because there is no
And also
particular
I cannot stay in
medicine at all. But let us try to understand from the point of meditation. People, even doctors also suggest the meditation or yoga. These are the two best medicines done. The medicines that are available are manufactured and made available in the medical shops. No, please don't go for that. Especially that case is related to migraine headache. So the best medicine for that, some of the doctors say that they suggest the meditation. And here in this particular experimental research and between group designs, the experimenter is interested in examining the effect of a particular meditation on migraine headaches. In this case, the experimenter wants to have two experimental treatments, meditation and no meditation. If he wants to use between groups design, he will select a homogeneous group of individuals with a migraine headache and randomly assign them to one of the two experimental conditions. Experimental conditions are having meditation or not having meditation also. Am I right? These are the two conditions.
Right, sir.
One group will be exposed to the meditation, the other group will be not exposed, will not be exposed to the meditation. So you can take up or pick up the people who are suffering with this migraine headache and divide them into two groups randomly, and one group has to be exposed to the meditation. Rest of that particular group should not be exposed to the meditation. Then you see after 2 months or 3 months the difference between the group that is exposed to meditation and the group that is not exposed to meditation. This is the kind of experiment. So I think the subject or the client has to undergo this kind of meditation for a period of 1 month or 2 months. Similarly, the other group which will not be exposed to this kind of meditation, and after 1 month or 2 months, you can see the difference. If the difference is such that if the group that is exposed to meditation is not, doesn't have any problem at all, migraine headache, then you say that meditation is the best medicine for overcoming this particular problem. What do you say about this, other friends?
Very clear, sir.
Murthy, is it clear? So therefore,
Very
if you are
clear.
interested as psychologist, if you are interested as psychologist, and you can pick up ample people
Yes,
on the
very clear.
subjects, it may be 10 or 20 members, then these people have to be divided into two groups equally. Then one group has to be exposed to meditation, the other group will not be exposed to meditation. Then after giving this kind of meditation, which we can call it as experimental treatment.
Yes, sir.
Since we are giving the
One
meditation.
small doubt. Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Huh?
Sir, the group which will be taken under no meditation, will they be informed about it, or it is like they will not be informed and then they will be treated in
There will not be any treatment to the control group. Control group in the sense which is not exposed to meditation.
Okay.
Then the other group will be given treatment. That means practice of meditation will be given every day. And the other group, the control group of the other group, will not be given any kind of meditation.
Okay.
The difference is only giving meditation and not giving meditation. Even you inform them or you don't inform them, doesn't matter at all. But one thing is, you are not giving any kind of meditation to one group and you are giving meditation to the other group, which we can call it as experimental group. That means you are giving experimental treatment to one group and the other group is silent. Then you find out the difference. Okay? Madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is about between groups design. Then advantage of the between group design is subjects design are invaluable in certain situations and give researchers the opportunity to conduct an experiment with very little contamination by extraneous factors. So extraneous factors, the intervention of the extraneous factors may not be there in this particular between group designs. That is the advantage. And the disadvantage is with the between group is that they can be complex and often require a large number of participants to generate any useful and analyzable data because each participant is only measured once. Researchers need to add a new group for every treatment and manipulations. The same person cannot give his time for the researcher. Am I right? For every treatment, that's a disadvantage. The disadvantage is he may cooperate or he may not cooperate also at times. He may pretend that he is meditating. Am I right or wrong? So therefore, I think there are certain things which are, of course, which will come under disadvantages. I think you can have so large number of people and the same candidate cannot be used number of times for this experiment. He can't accept also. The subject cannot accept for a longer period. If you want to come to the conclusion, this has to be done repeated number of times on different groups. Then only you can say this meditation is one of the best solution for overcoming this particular problem అని చెప్పి చెప్పవచ్చును. ఇద్దరి మీద చేసి ముగ్గురు మీద ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్ చేస్తే that can't be an experiment. He has to be done on different groups at different places, different locations. A number of times that has to be repeated. And if you get the same results on each and every trial, then you can say this particular meditation is the best medicine for this particular problem. That's what between groups design. Between groups design. Somebody is on the screen. In it out, please. Yes. Next one is within group design. The first one is, I think, experimental research is divided into two categories. Between the group design, we have seen an example also. Now let us try to understand within group design. Next one. In within groups design or repeated treatment designs, we can also call it as repeated treatments design. The same group of participants will participate in all the experimental conditions. Same group of people can participate in all the experimental conditions. If I use a particular group here, I can also use the same group somewhere. So therefore, the difference between is here between within group design and within group design and between group design is that here the group of participants will participate in all the experimental conditions, but whereas in the between group design, only one occasion they can be used. One condition they can be used. One of the simplest within subject designs is opinion. Here he is quoting one example under within group design. Watch any formalized debates and you will see the process. The chairperson will take a vote before the debate. Before the debate on any issue, the chairperson can take the opinion of the participants. Then after completion of the debate, there may be some discussions, debates, so many talks and other things. And after having all these processes, then you can retake the opinion of the people on that particular debate. Am I right or wrong? Same group of individuals can be used at the first instance on the debate. Their opinions are collected, and after conducting this debate, before conducting the debate, the opinions were collected by the chairperson, and after conducting the debate, the chairperson again can collect the opinions of that particular group. Don't you think you find difference in the opinions?
Maybe, sir.
Group is the same.
There
Before
may
the
be
debate and after completion of the debate, because these people are exposed to the different talks, different discussions, then they may change their opinion.
It is possible, sir.
Yes, that's the reason why the same group is used at a different conditions. That is known as within group design. So therefore, there may be some difference between the opinions at the first instance, also in the end opinion process. After completion of the debate, at the end, you can also collect the opinions of those people in the debate. Then you can find so much of change in the opinions. So this kind of before and after conducting the debate, if you can collect the opinions, which we can call it as within group design. I think some of these things will also come under this. Some of the opinions of the people towards certain things. If I use technology, after having experienced this technology, their opinions will also undergo change. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
At the first
Yes, sir.
instance, you reject the proposal of using the technology in education. Then I'm also against this kind of, personally, if you ask me about the online classes, I'm against the online classes.
We too, sir.
Am I right or wrong?
We too, but we cannot avoid this, sir.
Yeah. Since this is a open university, and again, of course, you cannot attend the classes regularly. So therefore, I think you will find a lot of, you find difference between offline and also online classes. The same group of the candidates will be exposed to online classes and also offline classes. You find on the same topic, you find a lot of difference. So such kind of experiments can also be taken up. You can also take up a research on this, the efficacy of the online teaching and the offline teaching. For your research purpose also you can take up. Some of the studies are also already available. The efficacy of online teaching and offline teaching, and most of the results have gone in favor of offline teaching because the teacher is there, available, doubts clarification, no transmission loss, attention would also be there, seriousness would also be there. He can also repeat number of times, but I cannot repeat all those things number of times because I have to hurry up in completing my syllabus if it is online class. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
So that's the difference between within group design and between group designs. Now let us move to the last one. Last in the sense, of course, again in this particular disadvantage within group design. Let us try to understand some more things related to this. Yes, some of these things which will come under these between and within research designs. The first one is simple randomized or two randomized group design. Simple randomized or two randomized group design. Simple randomization. Simple randomization means that is not that much systematically the subjects or the participants are not selected. Randomization means that you have to represent the whole population. Am I right? Randomization means that particular group which is picked by the researchers should represent the universe or the population. Here in this particular simple randomization or two randomization group design, a two randomization group design is so called because the participants are randomly assigned to one of the two experimental conditions. In formulating this type of design, the experimenter first defines the independent variable and the dependent variable. Subsequently, he selects two values of the independent variable. These two values are called experimental conditions or experimental treatments. That is the meaning of simple randomized or two randomized group designs. There are two randomized groups. These groups are randomized. These two groups are randomly selected. When the subjects are randomly selected, we can call it as randomization. In the two randomized groups design, one independent variable is varied in two ways. A two randomized groups design is so called because here the subjects are randomly assigned to two groups only. In formulating this type of design, the experimenter first defines the independent variable and the dependent variables. Subsequently selects two values of the independent variables. These two values may also called as conditions or treatment. Or independent variables key and values ఇచ్చేటటువంటి విధానాన్ని ఏమంటాడంటే he can call it as conditions or treatment of the experiment. The main interest is to examine whether or not these two conditions affect the dependent variable in differential way. In selecting a sample for the proposed experiment, the researcher defines the population. So, an experiment conduct చేయాలనుకుంటే this kind of research design చేయాలనుకుంటే ఆయన యొక్క population he has to select on which he has to conduct that kind of research or use this research design. In selecting a sample for the proposed experiment, researcher defines population. Suppose the researcher wants to study the effect of reward on students' learning. This is the best example for this simple randomized or two randomized groups. Because students, you know pretty well, there is also reward and also awards. These rewards may be in the form of materials and it may not be in the form of materials, it may be in the form of appreciations or praises too. Then here he has taken, he is telling the example of the students reward, giving reward to the students for their learning. For this purpose, he may define the population as all the high school level students in a city. That is the population. For his experiment, the high school students in the city, in Hyderabad, for example, the whole students of high schools, that is the population. And from that, he can pick up 70 students randomly. 70 students randomly. మొత్తం హైదరాబాద్లో ఉండేటటువంటి హై స్కూల్ స్టూడెంట్స్ నుంచి కేవలము 70 మందిని మాత్రమే ర్యాండమ్ శాంప్లింగ్ టెక్నిక్ ఉపయోగించి సెలెక్ట్ చేసుకుంటున్నాడు ఈ ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్కి. దేని కింద? సింపుల్ ర్యాండమైజర్ ఆర్ టూ ర్యాండమైజర్ గ్రూప్స్ డిజైన్ సంబంధించి ఆయన ఏం చేయబోతున్నాడు స్టూడెంట్స్ మీద? రివార్డ్ యొక్క ఫలితం. హీ వాంట్స్ టు నో ది ఎఫెక్ట్ ఆఫ్ రివార్డ్ విత్ రిగార్డ్ టు ద లెర్నింగ్. If I give the reward to the student, how it affects the learning of the students. That reward may be in the form of a chocolate, or in the form of a pen, or in the form of a book, or in the form of appreciation, or in the form of praise too. But here, in this example, 70 students are regarded as the two representatives of the whole defined population. And the researchers aim to understand the population by studying the sample. In this experiment, the researcher may want to two values of reward presence and not have on the reward options also. Yes. Two conditions here in this particular experiment is one is reward presence, the other is reward options. These are the two conditions with regard to the learning. So the first trial, he is exposed, the students will be exposed. The students who are picked up as a randomly, they will be exposed to a particular test. Here he has conducted in this experiment, may want to, 70 students in a reward condition group or non-reward condition group. He may use a lottery method to decide which participants should go into which group. Reward presence group or reward options group. He has to divide those 70 students into two groups, that to lottery type. And then there is no particular scientific random sampling here. When Miranta Unaran, I think there are about nearly how many students are here? There are 32 participants. 32 participants lo నేనేం చేస్తానంటే పెద్దగా సైంటిఫిక్ random sample పాటించకుండా half of the Madhyalo nunchi, if it is the classroom, I take the middle line, taking that middle line as a factor for dividing the student into two groups. The left to this particular line will be one group and the right side students will be the other group. This one example, vague example. అంటే అంత కరెక్ట్గా ఇక్కడ లాటరీ టైప్లో తీసుకుంటున్నాడు. అదే కదా టాస్ వేసినప్పుడు ఏమవుతుందండి, ఇట్ మే బి బొమ్మ ఆర్ బొరుసు కదా, హెడ్ ఆర్ టైల్. This only luck factor. Am I right or wrong? Like this, he will divide those 70 students into two groups, and following this lottery type, some group, 35 students would be one group, rest of the 35 students would be in the second group. Then for those people, he may use lottery method to decide which participants should go to which group. Those two groups are, one is reward presence group, the other group is reward absence group. అర్థమవుతుందండి? am I able to reach you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ఈ రివార్డ్ ప్రెజెన్స్ అంటే వాడికి రివార్డ్ ఇస్తే వాడి యొక్క లెర్నింగ్ ఏమైనా మార్పు వస్తుందా? రివార్డ్ లేకుండా చేస్తే వాడి లెర్నింగ్ ఏ మార్పు ఉంటుందో ఇప్పుడు చెప్పబోతున్న వాడు. He has divided those 70 students into two groups based on one group is reward presence group, the other one is reward absence group. That group will not be given any kind of reward, whereas the first group will be given a reward for the tries that the research is making with regard to the learning. Correctly చెప్పాడు అనుకోండి. Say for example, let us see he has given some kind of experiment where this, he may use a lottery method thus over. Experimenter picks up a single slip each time. The experiment goes like this. The experimenter picks up a single slip each time. He may decide that the first slip will go into the first group, the second into the second group, again the third slip into the first group, and so on. అంతేనండి? ఫస్ట్ స్లిప్ లో కొన్ని వర్డ్స్ రాసింటాడు. There are certain words. ఫస్ట్ స్లిప్ లో ఫస్ట్ గ్రూప్ కి ఇచ్చేస్తాడు. సెకండ్ స్లిప్ లో రాసిన వర్డ్స్ ఉండేటటువంటి సెకండ్ స్లిప్ will go to the second group. Then third slip will go to which group? Reward presence group. Am I right? First group is reward presence group. The second group is reward absence group. And for that purpose, for his experiment, he has prepared the slips which are having the words, the spelling or something words. Then how should be the, if I expose this kind of experiment to the students which are in the group where the reward is present. అంటే రివార్డ్ ఇచ్చేటటువంటి గ్రూప్ కి ఫస్ట్ స్లిప్ ఇచ్చేస్తాము, వాళ్ళకి ఇచ్చేసి వాళ్ళని బైహార్ట్ చేయమని చెప్తాము. We can ask them to bihart all those words which are shown in first slip, and the second slip words will be exposed to the second group, that is the reward absence group. Then there should be some time for them to get them by heart. Then after some time you will also test it like this. Thus, by the toss of a coin, the experimenter may, which two groups will be experimented. Yeah. After the groups are formed, the experimenter may give a list of words. Here I am talking about the words to the two groups, asking them to memorize. బాగా మెమరైజ్ చేయాలి. Somebody, one of your friends also working on memorization. మీరు అన్నారు కొంతమంది మెమరైజేషన్ గురించి నేను వర్క్ చేస్తాను, అందుకని సైకాలజీ చేయవలసి వచ్చిందని చెప్పి. One of the students of this batch told me that she would like to work on memory. Here is example for them. So therefore here the experiment is, after groups are formed, the experimenter may give a list of words to the two groups, asking them to memorize it. At the end of each trial, the participants are required to write down the words they remember. Thus this exercise goes on till the groups learn the list fully. However, the experimenter gives some sort of reward to the experimental group at the end of each trial. It's okay? Hello? Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Alakandi madams, also sirs.
Yes, sir.
Me palakakapothe, if you don't react to me, then I think the other way. The experiment is, there are two groups, reward presence, reward absence, and for each trial, this is a word game, they have to memorize it. For each trial, there would be a reward to the group that is exposed to reward presence. Reward presence group lo reward istadu okoka trial ki. Ante vallu enta memorize ayipoyin tarvata after memorization reward will be given to that group, whereas reward absence group there would not be any reward at all, even they memorize it. Ikkada మనం ఏం చేస్తున్నాం, we are trying our level best to test how the reward influence the memory level or the attention level of the students. Am I right or wrong? అంతేనండి?
Yes, sir.
sir.
మిగతా ఎవరు ఒక మూర్తి గారే పలుకుతున్నారు తప్ప మిగతా ఎవరు పలకడం లేదు. సో ఈ విధమైనటువంటి ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్ లో మెమరీ కోసం ఉపయోగించినటువంటి ఒక టెస్ట్, a test is conducted between the two groups, random groups. కరుణ్ కుమార్ గారు చెప్పండి, ఒక గ్రూప్ ఏమో రివార్డ్ ఇస్తున్నాం ఫర్ ఎవరీ ట్రయల్.
Okay, sir. I am listening, sir. Listening.
Okay.
I'm hearing, sir. No problem.
సో ఆ విధంగా రివార్డ్ ఇచ్చినప్పుడు would there be, of course, any response in the memorization of the words by the students?
Yes, sir.
Who performs better? ఎవరికి మెమరీ పవర్ ఎక్కువ ఉంది అనేటటువంటి మనం అర్థం చేసుకోవచ్చు. We can understand, am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is the experiment that is meant for understanding the memory power, where he has introduced the reward. A reward em kaavachu, it may be the form of chocolate. చిన్నపిల్లలకు అంతకంటే ఏమి ఇస్తామండి? ఒక్కటి ఇక్కడ మీరు అండర్స్టాండ్ చేసుకోవాలా, ఈ రెండు గ్రూపులు సపరేట్గా ఉంటాయి. am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
దాన్ని ఒకే క్లాస్ రూమ్ లో పెట్టేసి ఒక గ్రూప్ పక్కన ఇంకో గ్రూప్ సైడ్ బై సైడ్ పెట్టేస్తే ఎవరికైతే మనం చాక్లెట్స్ ఇస్తున్నామో మరి ఇద్దరు తన్నుకుంటారు, వాడికి చాక్లెట్ ఎందుకు ఇస్తున్నారు, నాకెందుకు ఇవ్వట్లేదు. మరి రైట్ ఆర్ రాంగ్?
అవును సార్.
చిన్నపిల్లలు కొట్టాడుకుంటారమ్మా, అందుకని కొంచెం జాగ్రత్తగా ఉండాలా. రివార్డ్ ఇస్తున్నప్పుడు ఆయనకి ఎందుకు ఇస్తున్నావు, మాకెందుకు ఇవ్వలేదు అంటాడు వాడు. మేము కూడా పార్టిసిపేట్ చేసినాం కదా అంటాడు. పార్టిసిపేట్ చేశాడు, కానీ ఇక్కడ రివార్డ్ అనేటటువంటి ఇట్ విల్ డిసైడ్. ఎంత వాళ్ళ రివార్డ్ అయితే ఇచ్చినప్పుడు ఏమవుతుంది అంటే, నాకు ఇంకొక రివార్డ్ వస్తుంది, ఇంకొక చాక్లెట్ తినాలని చెప్పి ఆ విధంగా బాగా గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేస్తారు కదా. That's the role of the reward here. So therefore this kind of experiment will come under two randomized design. Simple randomizer or two randomizer group design. So here the two groups are formed randomly and one group is exposed to the reward, the other group is not exposed to the reward, and the test was conducted, the whole list for testing the memory, and for each trial there was a reward of giving some kind of, it may be chocolate or anything, and for the other group there would not be any reward. And after completion of the whole test, then who performed better, he will decide why the other group, which is not given the reward, did not perform better than the first group. This shows, and again I'm telling you, this is not the chocolate alone, this may be prize also. Very good, wonderful. Yes, Sahabos, they're all prizes, isn't it? You are encouraging those people who are memorizing most number of words. That's what. Next one, let us see this one. For this purpose, you can also use the t-test for analyzing the results. You can also use the t-test for analyzing the results, because for every test there is a trial. For every trial there would be a score for both the groups, and you find different scores. Group 1 scores, also group 2 scores. Then you can compare these two scores. Then who performs better? You can find out the significant difference between the responses of these two groups, which performed better. For that purpose, we can use t-test, statistical test. If you have to compare the two means, for that purpose, we have to use t-test. Am I right? Statistics people may be knowing, if you want to compare the two means, the statistical technique that we have to use the t-test. Okay. Similarly, if you want to compare the means of three groups, we can use f-test. More than two randomized groups also design is there. Similar is the case here. There you have seen the two groups, and in other experiment you can find more than 2 randomized groups. More than 2 randomized groups. And he has also given the example of the teaching methods. Group A, Group B, Group C. Which group perform better? And for that purpose, when there are more than 2 groups, you are going to use F-test, analysis of variance, to find out the difference between the 3 groups. For 2 groups, you are comparing means you are using a t-test. For comparing the 3 means you are using analysis of variance or F-test. That's what he said. Almost I am coming to my time is also over, friends. Then we can discuss the rest of the things tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hello, friends. You are not on the screen. What the problem? Please come onto the screen except Karunakar. What about the other candidates? So here we have seen 2 randomized groups design, then multiple randomized groups design also. So when there are multiple groups design, there you can use F-test or analysis of variance. When there are 2 groups, if you want to compare the mean scores of the 2 groups, you can use t-test. That's all about for today's class. And I want to see all the candidates on the screen. Is it possible for me?
Why not, sir?
Please come onto the screen. No? The PowerPoint has enabled closed captioning. Rajesh, Leelata, అంతేనండి యూనివర్సిటీకి నా టైం కూడా అయిపోయిందండి. కానీ మీరేమో నాకు సరిగ్గా రెస్పాండ్ ఇవ్వలేకపోతున్నారు, నాకు కష్టం అవుతుంది చూడండి. దిస్ ఇస్ ద డిఫికల్టీ ఆఫ్ దిస్ ఆన్లైన్ టీచింగ్ సార్. దిస్ ఇస్ ద డిఫికల్టీ ఆఫ్ ఆన్లైన్ టీచింగ్. ఐఎమ్ నాట్ ఏబుల్ టు సీ ఆల్. వెదర్ ఐఎమ్ రీచింగ్ ఆల్ ఐ డు నాట్ నో ఆల్.
రీచింగ్ సార్, పోస్ట్
ఫాలోయింగ్ సార్.
అని మీరు ఎవరు స్క్రీన్ మీద ఎందుకు రావడం లేదు? ఐ వాంట్ టు సీ బికాజ్ దిస్ ఇస్ ద ల్యాప్టాప్, నాట్ ఈవెన్ ది స్మార్ట్ ఫోన్. నేను ల్యాప్టాప్ ఎందుకు ఉపయోగిస్తున్నా అంటే ఐ వాంట్ టు సీ ఎవరీ ఆల్ ద 32 candidates on the screen. Now there are 26 participants, but I could see one. Yeah, now second person has come.
Sir, mostly video problem is there.
నా దగ్గర ఏదైనా ఆప్షన్ ఉందంటారా?
They are off.
మిమ్మల్ని అందరూ చూడాలనుకుంటే
లేదు సార్. You can't.
They're audible, sir. They're very audible. Your lesson is very nice to explain all these things. You are also noted down. Somebody is not possible to noting because of the traveling or somebody is there. That's why they are not showing in video mode.
Please. Let us see you tomorrow, same timings. Am I right?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you very much. Murthy garu, మీరు కనపడుతున్నారు నాకు స్క్రీన్ మీద. Thank you. See you tomorrow, same times.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Please.
ఆయన వీడియో ఓపెన్ చేసి అందరిని కనపడమంటుంటాడు. నన్ను కాదు, అందరినీ. అట్లా పాసిబుల్ ఉండదని చెప్తుంటే అట్లా తెలియదు.